Hi folks, and welcome to Yes for Success. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's great to see a number of you getting online on time this morning, which is just terrific, just fantastic. Online here in Australia, of course, in the morning, but it's also the evening in other parts of the world, or in fact the middle of the day, depending on where you're at. Once again, thank you for joining us for the question and answer session for Yes for Success for February 28th, 2014. Got a special guest for you today, which we've just been able to arrange over the last 12 hours, in fact, which is just fantastic in response to the question that we've received for this month's Q&A webinar. And the question comes from Adam, and it's regarding health and fitness. And he says, I have several conditions that affect my health, one of which is a genetic condition that affects my energy levels. It goes up and down. Can I really plan to be fit and healthy? What an awesome question from Adam. And this brings to the surface this issue about folks who may have, for various reasons, conditions which potentially can limit their health. And in terms of creating the success that they desire, does that mean that they can't actually have the health that they desire, or at least be as fully fit as they can possibly be, despite their special conditions? So, as a result of Adam's question, Adam, I do know, is unable to join us today, so the recording for Adam's going to be critical. So once again, folks, feel free to pop through your questions, type them in as we go, or pop in your comments. But as a result of Adam's question, I thought what I'd like to do is to ask if a good friend of mine would be happy to talk about his experience in this specific space. My good friend is Jason Barrie. And we'll just open up Jason's microphone and welcome, Jason.
G'day guys, how are you?
We're good, thank you, and thank you once again at such short notice to come and join us. I'll just give a little brief introduction to you, Jason, just so people know you, and we'll obviously give you an opportunity to just briefly talk about what your business does too, because it never hurts to give your business a bit of a plug. Okay, so Jason Barrie is a partner at Atlas Equipment Finance, so he's one of the founding directors and owners of Atlas Equipment Finance, and you can find Atlas Equipment Finance at www.atlasef.com.au. Jason, just briefly, what does Atlas Equipment Finance do?
We're just equipment finance brokers, so much like you have a mortgage broker to help facilitate getting you a home loan for your for the purchase of a home, we do the same sort of role within the equipment finance area. So it's a fairly small area, but it's quite diverse. You know, 1 minute I might be doing a large printer, and the next minute a car, and then the next minute a truck and trailer for a farmer out in Horsham or somewhere like that.
So it's interesting that they're diverse, but they could be connected. I'd imagine with 3D printers, you could in fact be financing a 3D printer that could in fact print a car or a boat or a plane, technically speaking.
Yeah, yeah. You do try to leap onto as many, I guess, referral sources as possible, and you sort of have three in every deal that you do: the client themselves, and possibly the supplier that they're dealing with, and then possibly their accountant as well, which can refer you business your way as well. So it's all about networking games.
And how long has Atlas Equipment Finance been in operation for, Jason?
Since November 2011. So
yeah. Into the third year now, which is just terrific. And,
which we forever get told by our bankers and financial institutions that 80% of businesses go under in the first 2 years. So we've passed that first hurdle. So and we've still got money in the bank, so which is positive.
That's absolutely positive. And for those in the audience, Jason and my relationship, we go way back, in fact, to the early to mid 1990s, and it's something that occurred in 1999, which is why I thought of Jason in response to Adam's question. And in May, I think it was May the 9th, was it? Was that the date, 1999?
No, it was actually May the 1st. Because
May the 1st.
Exactly a week before my birthday.
There you go. Well, that's where the May the 9th come from. May the 8th is your birthday. So May the 1st, 1999, and Jason was involved in an accident playing suburban Australian rules football here in Melbourne, Australia, and and I'll let you explain the injuries that you suffered at the time, and then we'll continue the conversation to help answer Adam's question.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess I was quite unfortunate in that I more or less got spear tackled into the ground, which is quite uncommon in AFL, but immediately I knew something serious was wrong, and I guess the injuries I suffered was what they call a dislocation of my neck, in that my C4 and my C5 went completely opposite ways, which resulted in some spinal cord damage. With spinal injuries, your body goes into what they call spinal shock, and that doesn't really allow the doctors to make a clear assessment of how you'll ever end up. So there's a lot of I guess doubt, but there's a lot of they can't really give you any clear answers, and so they generally take the worst case scenario, because anything from there always is positive. So I was diagnosed, because of the height of the injury to my neck, I was diagnosed a quadriplegic, and at first, and because it only cut my spinal cord, it didn't completely sever it. On what they class as an incomplete. You're complete if it's been severed. So there's always a chance that you could recover and you could get some things back. So I was quite fortunate in that probably about 3 weeks or 4 weeks after my accident, I could feel things in my foot, which means that messages are getting through. And over time, as the spinal shock subsides, I was able to get some movement back, more or less in my right side of my body. My left side of my body is still very ordinary, to say the least. And so today I had probably about 5 months in rehab in hospital there, and today I walk with a limp. The left side of my body is still a bit dicky, hands and legs, but the right side's probably, I guess you could say, almost 80 to 90% okay. So I've become very right dominant, that's for sure.
So just in summary, with the accident, initially you were told the worst case was that you would be a quadriplegic, which basically means from the neck down, pretty much very limited, if any, function. Yep. You were fortunate that your spinal cord was not fully severed, but it did have a break in it, which resulted in you getting some feeling 3 to 4 weeks in a foot, which was a really positive sign. How long did you spend in rehab, like in hospital, for that first part of your journey, Jason?
There was 2 weeks in intensive care, then another 4 weeks in the actual hospital there at the Austin in Heidelberg, and then there was about 5 months. I got out in October, 1999. So yeah, so it was probably all up about 5 months. But yeah, so actually the other thing I forgot to mention was that when they were operating, they actually tried to put the dislocation back in from the front of my neck. So they opened up the front of my neck, tried to sort of wangle it back in there that way, but they couldn't do it. So then they went through the back, and what they did was they did a spinal fusion where they fused C4 and C5. So if you look at X-rays of my neck now, there's a little bit of metal there holding those two bones together. Wow. And they took some bone off my hip to sort of help meld that together. So quite amazing.
Well, I can remember coming to the hospital the night of the accident, Jason, and to see you then and to know what you've been able to physically achieve since then. Honestly, you never would have, I could never have imagined what you're about to tell us has happened in terms of what you've been able to achieve physically. And again, this is all in the context of Adam's question about having real health and fitness issues, and is it still possible to be fit and healthy is fundamentally Adam's question. So everyone's heard now Jason's story about what happened. He spent 5 months with, and no doubt many people that Jason spent time with at hospital who got injured at the same time with similar injuries most certainly did not effectively walk out of hospital 5 months later. Jason has explained that he has about 80% use, of the right-hand side of his body and significantly less than that on the left-hand side, but that means he can still walk and do lots of other things. Jason, I'd love for you to just share, what are some of the physical things you've been able to achieve since the accident?
Look, I guess I was probably referring back to Adam's situation. I guess when the injury first happened, I was looking for things to do because I'm not good sitting down. So I think the first thing that I really took to was bike riding, and the first day that I rode a bike, I did 10 kilometres, but I had to stop every kilometre. It was amazing, just how challenging it was, and how I had this massive fear of falling over the whole time. And, you know, you can relate now when I see little 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds riding for the first time. So I took up cycling and sort of became quite a regular down there at Beach Road in Melbourne here, and really started to enjoy it, and started watching the late night rides over in Europe and things like that, and to the point that we started doing some bike rides around Victoria, and I'd really struggle on the hills, and most cyclists will tell you they're always one leg dominant anyway, but obviously my right leg, I've been doing most of the riding with my right leg, but so we did a couple like where they were 140 k's. There's one down at Lawn, it goes down to Lawn, starts at Torquay, does a bit of a loop around the Great Ocean Road, which is a great ride. But then that took me over to, I got so involved in it, I went to France 2 years running, and the first year I went over there, I went with one of my mates who is a very keen cyclist, and we rode about 600 k's in the space of 7 days, tracking a lot of the Tour de France route a day prior to the cyclists coming through. So, and it was an awesome experience, and I can certainly tell you that by the 7th day I just had no gas in the tank, and my, certainly my thighs and that were absolutely aching, so goodness knows how they do it these days. But so that was one aspect, and then having gone down to Lawn quite a bit, I took up doing the Lawn Pier to Pub, which is a 1.2k swim.
Yes.
And again, that has its challenges. The first year I did it, because my legs don't function as well as anyone else's. When I swim, I drag my feet, and I very rarely use my feet. And when I train for the Pier to Pub, my wife makes a comment about my shoulder definition, because it's pretty much all shoulders and my arms. And so the first year that I did the Pier to Pub, I felt like I did all my training, and it was the first time I wore a wetsuit. And if anyone's ever worn a wetsuit, I'll tell you that it's a completely different experience to swimming at a local swimming pool, doing a couple of k's. So I was bobbing up and down, and my legs were bobbing up and down, and I pretty much had my face angled in towards the water. And so I just took on a lot of water and had to pull out. So it was very embarrassing the first time, but the second time I learned to get a wetsuit with no buoyancy around the legs, and so I have a wetsuit now which is just cut off like a pair of shorts. And but yeah, I've been able to do that a few times now, and successfully, and so it's I really enjoy that.
So how many have you done now, Jason?
3.
Three Pier to Pubs, and do I understand that in 2013, just over a year ago when you did it, you got a record for yourself? Is that right?
Oh, look, I beat my time, yeah. And I guess that's the thing, is just trying to challenge myself to keep beating my times, really. I think I took, I'm trying to remember actually, I think it was 107 down to about 53, so
Yeah.
53 minutes that is. So it was good, and I mean, had that not been for my wife's birthday this year, I would have tried again and tried to get down to 45. That was the aim. So yeah, so
And
yeah, it's good. It's refreshing.
you travelled to Africa in October 2012 to take on a fairly mighty feat. Do you mind sharing what that feat was, please?
Yeah, look, yeah, I really, I think I've read a few books about climbers, and I really thought about for someone who, with my limitations, something might be possible would be climbing Mt Kilimanjaro, and so my wife and I trained for that, and all throughout the training, I was clearly way ahead of her, and to the point that her brother made mention that you're prepared to leave her behind if you can make it to the top, and so as pride would have you, as pride sort of hits you in the face sometimes, and so when we get to Africa, I'm the one who had to pull out, and she continued on to the top. So it was embarrassing, but I was just so proud of my wife. She was she did so well, and yeah, it was a great experience, but I'm still disappointed that I didn't get to the top. But
How far did you complete?
got to about 4,300 meters. So it's about five seven. Oh, no, 5'7". I can't remember. I used to
About
be able to do
70% of the way, is that right? About 70% of the way to the
Yeah,
top?
probably be about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We were certainly cold, and yeah, you could certainly feel the change. But yeah, so one day, hopefully, I'll get back there again and give it another shake.
Well, I should share some comments coming through, Jason. Kate says you're an inspiration. Sim says, I struggle to walk around the park. You're amazing. And by the way, I'm able-bodied. David just says, wow. And Hui says, what do you mean 70% of the way to Mount Kilimanjaro is not a success? I think
That's right. Yeah.
I might have said something like that. Now, so the reason why we're focusing on this, and there's some key points here on your story. And again, we're sharing this to help Adam, and then there's lots of people who have similar issues. One of the challenges with creating personal success and starting with what you want first is reality, because people always tell me, is what I've written down, Gary, realistic? And I often say, I can't answer that question. You have to find out what's realistic for yourself. Now, if we go back to at the start of your story, you said, I'm going to take up bike riding. I first aimed to ride 10 kilometres. And you said, I had to stop at the end of every kilometre for that first ride. And you said that you had a fear of falling off, like a 3- and 4-year-old would have riding their bike. Now, imagine, Jason, if you had have let that fear take over and stop you from doing what you were trying. You actually didn't know really what was realistic back then, did you?
No. I guess you just don't know what you can do until you have a go, I guess. And you have a few falls along the way, and I can tell you that my elbows and that certainly did have a few falls on the bike, but it's one of those things I guess you have to.
I know this is a long time ago, so you literally might not be able to remember. But can you actually remember being on the ground, quite literally, in those early days, having fallen off? And can you remember what was going through your mind about, can I do this or can't I do this? Have you got any recollection of that stuff at all?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I think the first time, I'm not too sure whether too many of the people out there are cyclists, but the first time I used clip-on pedals,
yes.
Clip-on shoes on my pedals.
Yes.
It's always a challenge, and someone said to me that, listen, when you do it, make sure you do it on an oval so that when you fall off, it's just to get used to. Yeah, it's a soft landing. Well, I decided to just give it a go on the main road, and I was at a set of traffic lights, and I was just standing there, and I couldn't unclip. So when you can't unclip, you just keel over, and I keeled over, and there was another cyclist next to me, and he sort of laughed, and because he knew that obviously I was a beginner, and a lady got out of the car and started abusing him because she thought that he had pushed me over. And it was quite, I was sort of defending him valiantly, but I think getting back to your question though is that I think I wanted to sort of, I think you got to take it back to my accident and that I guess I sort of want to prove to myself, but also prove to other people, because every day I walk, I get looks, and people look at me, and I always wonder what they're thinking, whether they're thinking, well, what's wrong with him? Has he got cerebral palsy, or how did he do that, or he's so young? And there's been times, especially early on, I remember one time parking in a McDonald's and getting abused because they didn't believe I was disabled.
Right.
And I had to show them the pass, and they still didn't believe me. So you sort of, the people, I guess, are conditioned to thinking that, a young person, you shouldn't be disabled, or young people wonder what happened, were they born with that? So I guess I always had this underlying fear that, I don't know, because I don't think I don't think I'm a stronger character generally speaking, but I'm just a stubborn prick, and I guess I just didn't want certain things to get the better of me, and I just wanted to be, I guess I'm just trying to fight sometimes to be accepted, to be normal.
So on some, so if I've heard correctly, to a degree, your fear of not being seen as normal was more powerful than the fear of falling off the bike.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good way of putting it, yeah.
And that just gave you the energy and the desire to just keep going. And look, sometimes, that can be really, really powerful. But, you did forget to mention when you said someone's so young, you did forget to mention young and good looking. When people, but I mean that's way back then. Now I would imagine that drive has shifted somewhat to you now know that you can physically achieve pretty much whatever you stick your mind to. And I know still the Mt Kilimanjaro thing gets to you, and probably no doubt at some stage in the future you might go back and have another crack. But for the vast majority of people out there, to get to 70% of the way, they know that that's pretty amazing. And I mean, you're in training right now. I know as a fact you're in training right now for a fairly amazing event. Do you want to share what that is?
Yeah, well, my wife last year tried to do the Oxfam 100 kilometre in 48 hours walk, and I guess one of the guys at our local cricket club's tried it twice now and failed, and he was trying to rope me in, and eventually I convinced my best mate to sort of do it with me, and so there's three of us, and we've dragged another guy in, so we've got the Oxfam on May the 2nd, so it's a 100 kilometre walk. So we've been doing a fair bit of training, which in itself presents obstacles along the way, probably a few more for me than the other three guys, but it's great. Get a lot of conversations. We retell the same stories 3 or 4 times every weekend.
Every training session.
Yeah, so it's been very enjoyable, but yeah, so we'll see how we go. Hopefully, I'd really like to do it and get one up on the wife because she didn't complete it last year. So.
Well, for those folk out there in the audience, many would know that my wife Michelle's completed 2 100-kilometre Oxfam Trail walkers and is once again in training for her 3rd this year, so I get to go out and support her with her training. But as a matter of fact, last year when Jason was supporting his wife Patrice and I was supporting Michelle as the support crew, we actually bumped into each other. Neither of us knew that the other was going to be there, and we actually bumped into each other at the start line. And clearly that physical experience of being there has motivated Jason to be part of the team. So, what we're hearing here, folks, is a story, a real story. Now, Jason's challenges did not end back in 1999 when he walked out of hospital. He shared the fact that he's had ongoing challenges. He has 80% use of the right-hand side of his body and significantly less of his left-hand side of his body every single day of his life. And yet, he's gone out and found out what's realistic for him. Now that's included having some failures along the way, which actually is what life's about. Life's about having some failures, and the critical word is learning. I think we've heard that Jason learned how he could ride a bike. He learned how he could swim. He shared the story about the buoyancy and his first swim in the Lawn Pier pub where he half drowned taking on so much water. So he learned about the fact that he needed to have a wetsuit that didn't make his legs pop up out of the water, because that would make it very difficult for him to swim. And this is reinforcing key messages that we share with Yes for Success, is that you've got to be out, you have to go out there and discover what's realistic for you. You have to also learn. You will have times when you don't achieve exactly what you thought you were going to achieve, but the question is, did you learn? The big question is too, like, let's take Mt Kilimanjaro. Does it really matter whether Jason actually got to 70% of the way or 100% of the way? Yes, it would be great to get to 100% of the way, but the only reason why you stopped at 70% is physically you just couldn't go on. That's the brutal reality. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, you were cooked. Right? Yeah. So there's a point at which going out to achieve what you want to achieve, when it's in the health and fitness space, must still be considerate of your health and fitness. There's no reason why we should be bullish and put our health and fitness actually at risk by just saying, well, I'm going to do this no matter what, and actually cause further health problems. And again, you don't learn where you sit with these things until you give them a go. I think another interesting part of your story, Jason, is that you said, with regard to the bike riding, you said after a while when we started being a regular at Beach Road, you said the phrase, I started to enjoy it. Now that would therefore mean that there was parts, early days, where you actually didn't enjoy it yet. It was part of a goal to be able to get on the bike and ride. But then it's like all of a sudden, like magic, one day you found, actually, I enjoy this, and gee, it feels really strange if I don't do it. Is that somewhat accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, that's another important lesson for all of us, is that often, and I share this with people, often we have to do things that we don't like doing in order to achieve what we want to achieve. And interestingly, sometimes when you do that, you actually do start to enjoy the thing that you're doing, even though initially you didn't. And that's a classic example here. And Jason has gone and discovered, 600 kilometres, twice of the Tour de France, riding ahead of the Tour de France. If you know anything about cycling, fully 100% able-bodied people would struggle to do that. And Jason, it can never be taken away. Jason has achieved that. The Lawn Pier to pubs, 1.2 kilometre ocean swimming. This is not pool swimming, folks. This is ocean swimming. Once again, Jason's gone out and achieved it. And he found out for himself how to do it. Did he get setbacks and knockbacks along the way? Absolutely. Is it possible a lot of this started from a deep desire to be seen as being normal? And if any of you know him with his sense of humour, which is a little bit like mine, it might be, no matter whether he had the accident in 1999 or not, and Jason knows exactly where I'm going, he might struggle to be described like that anyway. And you know what? Who wants to be normal anyway? I don't, personally. I don't want to be normal. I want to be unique. And that's what I think Jason is a great example of. And Lee says, here. So I gather that Lee is in support of what I'm saying. David says, I'm going to stop complaining. Hui once again says, Jason, thank you for sharing. It's amazing. And folks, and Adam in particular, when you view this recording, you need to find out, Adam, for yourself what's realistic, and you need to be as healthy as you can be for your personal health conditions. That's what Jason does. Now, meanwhile, folks, all of this other stuff's been going on. From a professional perspective, Jason just hasn't sat back on his laurels. He worked for Mercedes-Benz Finance for a significant part of his career, but had a burning desire to be leading his own organisation, found appropriate people to partner with, and that's where Atlas Asset Finances come from. So, you can do anything in your life providing you're prepared to put the effort in, the work in. No doubt starting the business has not been easy, but as Jason said, they're into their third year. They've got through that 2-year hurdle that's important for startups to get through. And I'd encourage you, if you are looking for finance for boats or large vehicles or trucking equipment or whatever it might be in that space, a large 3D printer, that you please feel free to contact Jason at Atlas Equipment Finance. Is there anything that we've missed with your story, Jason, that you'd like to share?
No, I don't think so. I think it's very humbling hearing what people think, that's for sure, because I don't think what I'm doing is anything extraordinary. That's all. I guess I'm just trying to battle my way through this. Well, yeah, and live life to the full, really. We
That's
only
right.
have one chance at this, so.
That's right. And your chance, your story, your journey is yours. It's no one else's. What happened was a tragedy. There's no question about it. But all you could do is, going forward, make the best of that tragedy, which you have, and you continue to do so every day. You're reminded of it every day because of the physical limitations that you have. But as we can see in that photo, you've got a big smile on your face. You've always had a big smile on your face. You had a big smile on your face before the accident. You've always had a big smile on your face since the accident. I know you're a very humble man, Jason Barrie, and I have the utmost respect for you and what you do every single day. You're a delight to know, and for someone who could very easily be bitter and twisted, I remember on many occasions, Jason, you've described yourself as the luckiest unlucky man alive. And even
Exactly.
even that description is just beautiful and so unique to you. That's such a, when I first heard you say it, was not a surprise on any in any way. We have reached the end of our journey, and I hope, and you can, no doubt you can understand, folks, why when Adam's question came through, the first person I thought of was Jason, and why I was so keen for him to be able to share his story with you. Jason, I can't thank you enough for just at such short notice, when you're so busy, to give up your time to help other folk on their personal journeys to creating the success that they desire. I know that you've been an inspiration. Everyone's just sending through thank yous at the moment, saying thank you for your time, thank you so much, this has been awesome. And again, from the bottom of my heart, Jason, I really thank you for your time, and look forward to continuing our friendship and our journey, and obviously wishing you the very best for Oxfam 2014, and
Thanks.
we'll see you out in the course, no doubt.
Yeah, let's hope so. I got a funny feeling I might be seeing your wife's backside more so than her seeing mine, that's for sure.
Well, it's a nice backside, so she'd be very happy for me to say. All right, folks. Thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to working with you at next month's Yes for Success monthly question and answer webinar. So we'll see you again soon. Ciao.
Thanks, guys.